Lori Haynes. Welcome to Health on the Line. Here's a question for you. What do Tom Cruise, Einstein, Walt Disney, and Jay Leno all have in common? Give up? Well, the answer is dyslexia. They all struggled with the ability to read. Coming up, the amazing research into the mind of a dyslexic and tools on how to overcome the learning disability. But first, a man who became a teacher and a multimillionaire despite a secret he kept hidden for 40 years. This is John Corcoran's story.
I learned to read when I was 48, and I am so full of joy with that, but I'm also very saddened. If I could learn to read at the age of 48, why couldn't somebody teach me at the age of 8? Why didn't that happen? I think as a child, I went to school with high hopes to learn to read. By the time I got to the second grade, I didn't know, but it was obvious that I wasn't keeping up with the rest of the group. I didn't understand what the markings on the page were. I didn't know the alphabet. I didn't know the order or the logic of the written language. It was just like if I put a foreign language in front of you, you would say, where do I start on this? By the time I got to the third grade, I didn't have a reading problem anymore. I had a discipline problem. I had an emotional problem. I had a self-esteem problem. I was in the dumb row. And when I got to middle school, I spent a lot of time in the hallway. Can you imagine being called on every day by the teacher to read? And you're sitting and everybody's looking at you. All the other children have taken their turn and they've read. And I couldn't do it. I never could do it. So subconsciously or instinctively, I started misbehaving, and I would rather wet my pants than be called on to read. I challenged the authority in being a class clown. I was disruptive. I spit on a teacher. I was expelled, suspended from school. And at some point, I knew I was a good boy. You know, my mother and father said I was a good boy. How come I'm a bad boy? So in deciding that this behavior wasn't in my best interest, I decided to go underground. You avoid being put into a situation where you're going to be called on to read or write or spell. When I got to high school, then I started cheating, low-level cheating. Having somebody else do your homework, cheating on a test, looking at somebody else's test. But I managed to get this diploma. After I got my degree, it's kind of like I got out of the lion's cage, I got the stick, I taunted the lions again, unlocked the door, and got back in the cage. You know, I kept going back to where the words were. I really developed a lot of very superior coping skills, like a person in a foreign country. You know, you try to find somebody that speaks the language, a guide. I joined a fraternity. I lived in an athletic dorm, so there were a few tests that were given the semester before. I had access to that. I passed an exam book out the window to a friend at the university who was waiting for it. I painstakingly copied the 4 essay questions off the board, put it in my blue book, passed it out to a friend. He went under a tree and passed it back to me. He didn't know that I couldn't read. He was a bright student. One of those resources that I identified, I told him if he helped me get through this experience, then I would help him get a date for the fraternity spring dance, which I did do, and I did pass the course. When I got married, I needed to tell this partner of mine the truth. She thought I was saying something like a lot of men might say, I don't read much. I was a college graduate. I was a teacher. She made an assumption, and she didn't really quite understand that until about 3 years into the marriage, when I was trying to read a child's book to my child, and that was when she tells me that was her first light of how severe, how bad my reading skills were. When I saw on television, Barbara Bush was talking about adults learning to read, that was like, oh, there's others and they have it? Where do you go to get this? I've got the money. I can buy an airplane ticket right now. Where is it? Where are they serving this up? I went to an adult program. I spent about 13 months with a one-on-one tutor. I started reading at about the 6th grade level. I thought I died and went to heaven. A year later, I went to a reading clinic and had a battery of diagnostic test, and they have identified some of the specific problems that I have. A severe auditory discrimination problem was identified. I really think it took me about 7 years to really feel like I was literate, but it took me about 10 years before I was able to tell my wife I didn't think I was dumb anymore. So in learning to read, there's a healing process. It's like fulfilling a prayer. It's like love. You know, it's like it's an emotion that I have that is, there are no words for it.